Welcome back, John Gay.
Good to be back.
It's been I think it's been a couple months at least since you've come
Yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah. It's been a couple months at least.
It was winter time for sure when you came on.
Yeah, yeah. I remember that. It had snow everywhere.
Yeah, because you live in Colorado, right? So is it always
Yeah.
snowing from like November to March, basically?
So we get a Halloween snow. So it comes around mid to the end of October, and then it's weird. We might not get another snow until late December. I mean, you might get one in between those two, but it's nothing major. And then January hits, and it's cold outside right now. It just snowed. It just snowed last month.
That's crazy.
Really weird. It's really weird. Yeah, we call it schizophrenic weather. I'm from Georgia. We call it drunk weather. Here it's pretty schizophrenic. Like you never know what's going to happen. They actually had last year. It's like record-breaking temperature. So it went from 75 degrees and it dropped down to like 28 within a matter of hours. And the wind was blowing crazy. I think it was a record-breaking like weather change. And I witnessed it. It was pretty wild. I mean, by the end of the night, there was snow everywhere. It's crazy.
That's crazy. The only things that I've seen is like in Oregon where I'm from or where I go to college at, it starts pouring and then it'll be sunny like 10 minutes later or vice versa.
Yeah.
But in Nevada, the only thing is like there's not really a spring or a fall. It gets like 30s, which isn't that cold, 20s, 30s in the winter.
Right.
And it goes like from like a month, it goes to after it's cold, it goes to like extreme hot, like 118 degrees.
Oh, jeez. So you're from Nevada originally?
Yeah, I'm right here right now. I mean, I'm born and raised in Las Vegas. Yeah.
Oh, word.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you go to what part of Oregon were you in college?
So Pacific University, it's like here's Portland. It's closer to the coast from Portland to the coast. It's like in between kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to live in Portland about 6-8 months, It's pretty out there. I loved it. It just rained a lot.
And there's weird people
grizzly.
For sure.
Oh yeah. Keep Portland weird. It really is.
My friend goes to Portland State, and he just put on a Snapchat story a guy just naked biking down the road, and he was like, "Welcome to Portland."
Oh yeah, they have the naked bike day. I'm surprised he didn't see more. That guy might have just been like practicing. But
wait. We got to go back. What is the naked bike day?
So they'll do like one day during the summer. All the townspeople, I guess whoever wants to participate, they all start. I think there's like a park over there on the river right there, right out like Old Portland area. And I think they start right there and they just ride through the town all naked. And it's just like, it's okay. It's like they don't mind it. People are like, whatever, Portland's weird. But I remember when I first moved out there, it was like night and day from where I grew up. They're very conscious, considerate, like people out there for the most part, especially when you're crossing the bridges, and you're getting off the exit, like they'll let you go. It's one at a time. Atlanta, no. I'm sorry. You're just going to wait. I'm going to take it up. You're going to have to take a spot when you can. And that, going out there, I was like, wow, it's cool. And, they don't use plastic, paper bags. They do the 10-cent deposit for your canned drinks. Recycling, compost, and like the trash are all required. So it's like, I like their ways. I think it'd be cool to spread that around, but then you also have it can be really messy and dirty there, and it's unfortunate, but that's at the same time they've learned to like deal with it in certain manners, which is like, okay, can make it work. It's just how I think that's how Portland is. Portland's just going to be an interesting spot to always go. I don't think whoever designed Portland at the time either, because how small it is. You got the two-way bridges, they didn't realize how cool Portland was going to be in the future. And now everybody flocks there, and it's like they think the traffic's bad. It's really not that bad.
No, it's not.
But it to them, it's pretty bad, I guess. But at least they're considerate.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing too about Portland is like, or even Oregon in general. It's like, you know, it is. First off, I can't tell you how much I've made off of those can deposits. Like me and I live in a house out there with like some of my roommates and teammates, I guess is what I meant to say.
Yeah.
But we always, that's all we do is we have like a thing in our garage. It's like, I think it's what the water heater came in. We got a new water heater at some point, and we just dump the cans in there. And whenever that's full, we take them to the can deposit and get like 30.
Yeah. You can't do that in all the states. That's what's so great. You know, you go up to Oregon, at least they're considerate and conscious about that kind of stuff, you know, and it's an incentive to recycle, you know. I feel like if they did that everywhere, it'd be a little bit better.
But then you get the, like you said, you get the homeless problem because, you know, there are a lot, like, I think there's more homeless shelters out there than there is most other places, but a lot of homeless people don't want to not be homeless because to go in those shelters, you have to not drink or do drugs. And a lot of those mental health issues or addiction.
Right.
And so there's not an in-between point. You can't send a homeless person to rehab.
Yeah, it's, you know, that's a fine line to walk and try to figure the best way to go about trying to fix that problem. Because I mean, yeah, like you said, they don't want to be homeless. Some of them have like mental problems, and you know that's something that we need to try to work on. I mean, it's in like most cultures and religions. Help thy neighbor. Don't like dismiss them, like they're in the same boat with you, like help them. And that's going to bring more gratitude to you. Like you're going to feel good about yourself for helping that person out. But we don't see a lot of that, unfortunately, in the world. It's with most homeless places. Here in Denver, we'll have, we have like homeless camps where they've gotten together and they've put a little tent community up. And this is the city, like the city ordinance doing this to try to help. And then, you know, where I have friends that live in, say, Knoxville, Tennessee. The police go through there and they rip those tent cities apart. They don't want them there. Funny thing about that, Knoxville's got a huge homeless problem. A lot of those homeless people that they don't want there, they don't want to help out, came from Atlanta. This was in the 1996 Olympics. They had them in Atlanta. The Atlanta city, whoever runs the city, got together. They got a ton of like Greyhound buses, and they offered these homeless people $20 in a Greyhound bus to leave because they wanted to clean up the city before the Olympics arrived. And I'm just like, man, you know, let's just send them somewhere else. And then they get to Knoxville. And there it's over flooded there. And then people there, I mean, you're in the country. Like those people are kind of set in their ways. And, you know, the South is the way it is. And the homeless people have a hard problem there. I can see you going to like, and it's like that everywhere. But I feel like if you go to other countries or other states, there are other bigger cities that are there to kind of like help the problem and not dismiss the problem and get it out. I mean, just like sweeping it under the rug is not going to do anything. Like we need a better solution. And what, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of fakers out there, a lot of people that are like pretending to be, but I hate to see a retired veteran out on the street begging for money. You know, a lot of the times you can see the hurt in their eyes. A lot of times they might be faking, but you know, you get a genuine feel for somebody that's like, man, they shouldn't be in this situation. And like they served their country, probably got shot at multiple times, and they're out here living on the street and nobody wants to take care of them. That's a shame. I feel so bad for that. But at this point in time too, it's like a lot of people have been tricked. We don't know who's telling the truth and who's not. So, we all have ID cards. We all have a social security number. I think that if there was an organization that was like willing to try to help some of these people out that wanted help or needed the help, there's a way to go about helping these people. But it's the lack of money that wants to go into it. We can put all this money into warfare. We can't even put it in our education system. And we definitely aren't putting it in towards helping people that can't help themselves. So, the system's kind of screwy. I don't know how else to put it. I think there's a lot of improvement that could be done. But there's a lot of improvement in the world that needs to be done. It's like, who do you focus on? Do we focus on the children that are starving in other parts of the world, third world countries? Do we need to help the animals that we're killing because we're trying to farm or make more land for ourselves? Like, I think that cohesive atmosphere of living with each other and nature and trying to help the actual situation is something we really need to work on as a Homo sapiens.
No, for sure. And something you said about IDs and stuff, made me think about how you do NFTs and stuff. And one of the things that they're looking for in the future, NFTs being a certain NFT being everyone being one born with it at birth and it being like their identification. And so
right.
Go through, you scan it and it's like you. And I think that could help a lot of the identification problems and fraud problems, but also, it's also so touchy when you get into that cryptocurrency world because you need such high level computing to like keep it from being fraudulated.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But what is your experience since you are an artist with NFTs and everything like that?
Well, I'm like old school artist. I'm a 1984 baby. So I'm on that cusp of, I still grew up outside playing with action figures and BB guns, but also in which I come from like a lower income family, so we didn't really I didn't have a computer in my home until probably 7th or 8th grade, but we had them at school, so getting to know the computer, but also still doing everything hands-on. I grew up and I'm a hands-on artist. I don't do a lot of digital work, and the 2 NFTs that I have are collabs, which is not saying that I can't eventually get into it myself. It's just trying to make myself learn certain aspects about it. But these other digital artists that I've been working with are amazing. And it's one of those things that's like, as an artist that paints on a canvas, that's the original. Like, that's it. I can make copies of it. I can make prints, canvas prints, stickers, mugs, whatever I wanted to make with it if I have like a good high quality file to render it and use it again. The NFTs that's where you'll have a lot of like leeway. People over here like, well, where's the original? Well, the original's on my computer, but where's the original? Can I have the original? Well, no, technically all I can give you is a print because it's on this computer, even if I made a digital piece of art and I wanted a copy of it, I'd have to make myself a print. So that's why like the NFT thing came into play. And it's like, okay, we have this actual product. We're basically saying, we're going to sell you this and we're going to give you the credentials saying this is the original. I still have it on my computer. All these good things, people can probably save it, screenshot it, whatever on their phone. They have a copy. It's not the highest quality, but they have an image of it. But the person who bought the NFT actually has from the artist saying, this is the original. Like, you have the original file. I'm not going to do any more work to it. Nothing else is going to be done. This is yours. And then they can turn around and sell it. So it's like a digital, I kind of see it as a digital USB drive that's being passed around and sold kind of thing. And it has the credentials on it saying that this is the real thing. I think later on you might have some problems with some forgeries, people learning the system and learning how to take advantage of it and do certain things, which is going to cause, it's like police and criminals. Criminals are always one step ahead. Usually they have to be. Cops are always chasing. So I think that's what it's going to be like. You know, they might find loopholes in it where they can do something, and then here are the people that are like, "Fuck, I just got ripped off. I got to figure out how to solve this." So you're gonna have room for improvement and all that good stuff. But I think it's a cool thing. I think that a lot of other companies will build off of it. Frames, like say your sign back there, for instance, like if you had an NFT with Collin Demand's podcast, it's like moving around, doing all stuff. They might build a frame that you can stick a USB drive in, kind of like those little photo frames that they change.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think the next step is holograms, right? I think they're doing a lot of this stuff holograms.
Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of different ideas that come from that, like way of making art and displaying it. Yeah, they did it with T-shirts and like they move in the sound. There might be a way at some point where they can like display it on a shirt and it's all moving around by itself. You know, there's all kinds of different ways that somebody might think of some cool stuff. And I think that that's cool. I just think it has a little bit of a road to go down before we figure the ins and outs of it. And I mean, plus crypto kind of like dropped. So it's like, you know, what are we pricing it at? That's another thing. You know, a dollar bill is technically a dollar bill. And it might only be worth 75 cents, but we spend it as a dollar. The cryptocurrency market's going up and down. So like one day I might have 2 Ethereum that's worth $7,000, and the next day it might only be worth $3,000. So I guess that's part of the game, part of the auction, playing the game. But I mean, these platforms are there for that. It's like starting platforms kind of get you out there. I mean, people have been making digital art for years. They've been making NFTs for years. They just didn't have a way of displaying their NFTs and selling stuff like that. Now there's a platform to do it. So it's interesting. I think at some point I'll eventually do some of my own. I just have to figure out, I have to make time to step away from my actual painting.
Well,
play on a digital computer.
Yeah. But there's always something that's going to be like the more like the soul, like, you know, this gets into all the things we talk about, me and you, the depths of humanity. You know, there's something that you can do on your canvases in person that you can't really do through a computer. You know, it's not as personal almost. And one day it might be able to, like, you might be able to throw on a VR headset and do it and then create the NFT. But that's a long ways away. And even it's not like you touching the paint specifically, maybe even creating the paint.
Right. That's the thing. I think a lot of people, I mean, you're going to have a lot of old school. I think it might come with a generational thing. I've always said, and I was always taught, like, drawing with a pencil that will always be a foundation point for any art form, whether you're sculpting something, making something in a digital world, taking a pencil and a piece of paper and jotting it down is always going to be a foundation. That's never going to go away, but that's also like, I mean, they've been doing that for thousands of years. So that's kind of like a concrete, I'm going to be okay as an artist doing my painting in a physical form instead of the digital world taking over and painting becoming obsolete. You know, like, that's something to kind of maybe be worried about, but I don't think that that'll happen. I mean, you can look at certain art form, quilting, like grandma that used to quilt. There's not a lot of young, like, newer generations that know how to quilt. So that's a lost art form. And that's what I'm worried about with the digital world. I don't want to say I'm worried about it. It's just a thought. I'll probably be dead and gone by the time the digital world like takes over and the Matrix happens and all that good stuff. But, you know, it's just one of those things where I've built my whole life around this. And I'd hate for something to come along and just be like, hey, sorry, we're going to take over. And I'm like left behind because I don't know how to do it. So me picking, that's why I got this iPad. I got Procreate. It's a tool. It's something that I should learn. It's my responsibility as an artist to learn it, you know, if I want to keep going and keep up with the ages. But deep down, I don't think that, at least in my lifetime, that painting will ever become obsolete due to the digital world. But I think that they could merge, which they have been. But I think there's a lot to play with in that realm because it's all art. And like you can mush it together all you want to. People do it all the time. And it's cool because, you know, every 10 years, every generation, something new in the creative world happens. And, you know, that's really what makes us humans. I mean, we're very creative people. Everybody creates something, whether they think about it or not, you know, or consider it to be that way. But, you know, somebody has to sit down and think about how they're going about doing something. Hell, cooking with a recipe is an art form, you know. It's just, you might call yourself a chef. And I think that that's interesting because I think everybody has that aspect behind them and they can play with it. And there's all kinds of tools to use. But, you know, it's whatever you want to call yourself. I've always been weird about the word artist. I mean, I like to paint. I guess I can be artsy. But artist became a very broad statement, I think. A lot of people were artists. I was like, well, maybe I'm just a painter, you know? I just like to paint. I don't know how to do all this other stuff. I think there's a lot more artsy people out there. You know, they put their hands on anything. It's amazing. And like, I look up to those people. I think that's I think that's skill. I think that's the gift. I've worked 30 plus years practicing. I don't think I was born with a gift by no means. But I think that there are some people out there.
I don't know, man. Wow. I don't know. Looking at your paintings, you're born with something, dude. I can't do that. And I
don't know how to say it. It's just, I've struggled over the years. There's been times where I just want to throw my pencil away. I couldn't figure something out, you know, and those are kind of, they will deter you if you're not careful. You just have to keep pushing. Maybe you can't figure that out. Go another option, go another direction. It's like certain paintings, certain types of art that I love. I wish I could do that kind of art. I can't. There's no way. It might be hyper realistic. It might be like the messiest looking stuff ever. But it's like organized chaos. Like it was intentional. How you did that, I have no idea. You didn't just go and it's done. No, like you thought about what you were going to do, I'm sure. Like, so I love that kind of stuff. I can't pull off a lot of it. So I don't know. I think I'm rambling at this point, but
no, you're good. I'm cool. Listening. Artist. But, you know, to take you back a little bit, I got caught with one thing you said that I was like, I got to remember that because I want to ask him this. I don't think I've ever asked you this. Has psychedelic experiences and the kind of art you do changed the way that you feel about death?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, over the years, I've heard different people's experiences. I do a lot of research, you know, it's interesting. It's scary. I mean, it's just inevitable. Everybody's going to die and pass away. For that to be something to be afraid of, I think that it's very common, but it's something that it's inevitable. We shouldn't be afraid of that. That should make us want to live our life more. Like, it's just like today's the present, you know, you never know what you're going to get tomorrow. I've had my few psychedelic experiences that I have had an ego death. Hell, there was one time I swear it was kind of like, you know, they depict people in a coma walking around a hospital, but the hospital's deserted. There's nobody there but that person walking around. That happened to me one time. I was in a hospital, but it happened to me after I had a DMT experience, and that changed my life. I can't I could never stress enough how much that changed my mental, the concept of the way I was living my life at that point. Like I had just started live painting. I'd been going to festivals for years as an attendee. I was in college, had no idea what I was going to do with my life. I knew I was going to be an artist, but you know, at that point in time, festivals were, you didn't see a lot of live painters, if at all. So I didn't even know that was a thing. I'm still going and I'm in college and they're like, am I going to have to get a job at like a firm where they're putting me to work doing design logos? Am I going to get a comic book artist job, a cartoonist job? None of it really like excited me. But I was going to these festivals and I was, how am I going to pay my bills? Like, what am I doing in my life? All these like kind of negative questions and way I was feeling. And I wasn't seeing what was around me. I was doing what I wanted to do. I was live painting. I was making some money doing it. I was meeting people. I was part of a community that appreciated what I was doing. And it took that experience to just boom, like, you need to look at this a completely different way. And it was harsh. It was scary. I was convinced I was gone. I kind of wanted to figure out how to present my body to the people that were going to find me. I was in that headspace. And it was a complete wake-up call. I told my mom about it. She's kind of like, ugh. But for me, changed my life. I'm not necessarily afraid of dying. I am afraid of what I might not get to do before I die, when it might come, obviously. I don't want to go through any pain, you know, but I think that's most people. It just, shit happens. It might be a freak accident. I might get cancer. But I think that's where you need to figure out how to appreciate what you have right now. And if you're not really that happy with it, then you are capable of making it better if you can. I can't say everybody's that lucky, but that would come into us helping other people. But like, you know, it's definitely, it's given me a wake-up call. I think that it's a huge part of your psyche. Psychedelics, especially like mushrooms and say peyote and these natural plant psychedelics that are here. I mean, you can add LSD into it. The LSD is it was a compound made up of a bunch of natural substances that cause hallucinations and stuff. But how it plays with your brain chemistry is what's very, very intriguing, especially like mushrooms. That's why I like to go to mushrooms. You know, people are kind of iffy about acid. Because a man made it in a laboratory. Mushrooms are natural. So I'd always go with a mushroom for people who wanted to experience it but have never experienced anything like it before but are curious. You know, those are really powerful, but they're really raw. I mean, LSD to me is cleaner than a mushroom trip. But you couldn't convince somebody that's never done either to try LSD first that might not trust it. So mushrooms are always a safe bet. It's natural. It's in our earth. It's part of the mycelium. The mycelium, it literally is representation. It looks just like your brain, the way neurons connect. So being able, like Oregon, legalizing it, Denver, downtown, like the city limits of Denver, I think it's legalized it. That's allowing people to study this and it not being an illegal form of study. And I think that that's a huge, huge breakthrough for mental health cases, PTSD, just literally rewiring the brain. If we could study how it affects us, what parts of the brain it affects, how to, and this is like a scientist, not some hippie who loves to do it like me, like, yay, it's fun. We need a scientist in there to know how the neurons are hitting, how it is affecting this part of the brain. What other part of the brain is it communicating with? I think that's what's going to help with Alzheimer's. I think that that's what's going to help with certain memory loss things that people go through at a certain age. Like, our bodies are made to heal. I think that a lot of stuff we put in our bodies in this day and time is not healthy whatsoever. Food, pills, drugs, whatever. But I think that there are certain psychedelic plants that are here. It's like I always say, humans think we're the most advanced species on this planet. I go get my gun, I'm going to shoot this lion. This lion can't kill me. But then I might eat a mushroom or smoke some DMT, and I literally question my reality. Like, am I here? Is this real? Who's advanced now? This plant, probably. This plant producing a chemical that makes you question. But I've always said, I mean, plants, there's a really cool documentary, Botany of Desire. It's a documentary, it's a book. You can watch both. It's really, really cool, but it talks about Homo sapiens keeping certain plants around. But at the beginning, he talks about how he's taking a day off and he's in his garden and he's watching all these bees pollinate his flowers in his garden. And he's like, these little bees are just slaves to these plants. They pollinate them. The plant's just sitting there. It produces its own food. It never has to move. And everything's done for it. And then he's over here watering it. He realizes that I'm a slave too. Like, I'm watering my plant. I mean, I have plants in my house because they're pretty. Who's the slave? We are. Like, we want plants around for certain reasons. We keep them around. And that documentary really talks about that. It's really interesting. But the fact that plants grow straight up, they defy gravity. They're the only thing that defies gravity. They're fractal. They can keep going. They're the same as top as underneath. Plants are really interesting. And you go into fungus and moss and all these, like, I think that those are mixed between. There's a lot of weird plants out there that have been around for millennia.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
have just evolved. I mean, they're so much more evolved than we are, but we're stubborn and we think that we know everything.
Do you think that plants are conscious? Because my girlfriend has plants, and she's always like, you got to talk nice to the plants. I'm like, no, you
Yeah.
don't. They're plants, and she gets mad at me for that. Do you think they're conscious?
Yeah, I really believe they are conscious. There's a book, The Hidden Life of Trees, is the name of it. They talk about this. This is really interesting. I've always liked this. There was these two trees out in the middle of a field or a very deserted landscape. There's no trees for like miles and miles and miles around them. And one of them gets struck by lightning and it falls over. Well, the other tree that's standing there kept that other tree alive because it had no other tree around to communicate with. That was its friend. And so scientists studied this and they're like, wow, this is interesting because the roots would nourish the tree that had fallen over and nourish its roots. And basically, even though it was laying on its side, it grew like that. And the other tree just grew up. So they were like, wow, I mean, is it literally conscious enough to realize that if that other tree goes, it'll be the only one here and it's sad? So I was like, wow. But in my psychedelic experiences, I have to say that I'm a jokey person. Even if the joke's about me, I'm still gonna laugh. I like good humor. If it's a good joke, it's a good joke. I used to laugh at tree huggers. Oh, the hippie tree hugger. And then I tried LSD and I was literally hugging trees. The majesticness of this thing breathing and being so big, and they're like guardians. They're very interesting things. But you can label that for most plants. It's just trees are there. Like, you can't not notice a tree, But yeah, I've had a lot of I've had a lot of really cool interactions with trees on psychedelics, and just plants in general. But I think that psychedelic, whatever it was that you may have taken that connects you with the earth, that's an important part of your life. Whenever you feel that connection, whether it's natural connection, whether you're just already just, I love plants and I love dirt and earth. That's great. Not everybody has that, especially if you grow up in a city. It's a concrete jungle. You're not going to have nature around you. If you ever go and feel that connection with nature, it's life-changing. It's, you know, for people that maybe have never tried it, I would definitely suggest having a small amount and sitting by a river. Just take it all in. It's really amazing. And it just makes you feel like, wow, I am from this earth. Like, I am from this earth. Like, the minerals and the atoms and all these things that make up this plant, this dirt, are inside of me, and I feel the connection. And that's super cool. I've always enjoyed that feeling, because I think that's very important for humans, to feel the connection to earth and to not ever feel that connection. I mean, I live right here next to a big school. And during the day, it's fine. You have janitors and stuff that are out here cleaning up, the groundskeepers. But at night, people will come out here and park, smoke weed, drink, whatever on the side of the road, and they'll dump all their trash out. And I'm like, man, and a lot of them are probably younger. And hopefully, you know, as you get older, you might become more conscious. But man, why would you throw anything out of your car? And there are trash cans 5 steps away that they could go throw them in. So it's like, why would you just get out and throw your trash out? It's like throwing your trash out in your own yard. You live on this planet. Like, why would you do that? So
that's a good point.
I don't think that our waste systems are the best either, but at least make an effort to get it to where it needs to go. So young, I didn't really think anything about it. I knew it wasn't right to throw trash out. We were taught that in school, but you don't really understand why. And then, you know, if you want to know why, you can kind of research and see how we go about disposing of our waste and our trash. It's not the best. A lot of room for improvement on that. But then you might take a psychedelic and you're like, holy shit. Like, I put all of my, I smoke cigarettes, it's bad. But like, I put all of my cigarette butts in my back pocket. You will never catch me throwing anything out on the ground. And it's one of those, it's mainly from feeling that connection from a psychedelic. You know, I'm very pro psychedelic. I've abused it in the past. I think a lot of people might do that first. But once you really start to get information from it and knowledge and understanding, I think back on why the natives would take it, why any ancient culture would take a psychedelic, because I felt what they felt, but they were still more connected to nature than we were. So their connection was even stronger than ours. So I always think about that. They could live off the planet, no problem. And there's still tribes that they need nothing. They might have a cell phone. They might have something like that, but seriously doubt it. And they're still over here cutting down banana trees, wrapping their food up in banana leaves, cooking it in the fire pit. And I know people that would pay thousands of dollars to go live like that for the weekend because it sounds like paradise. Well, we can integrate, you know, like we could still do that and still live in our cities, but we just have to integrate. There's a lot of countries that are integrating buildings with, you know, gardens growing out the sides or on the top. It looks like a cornucopia city. It looks amazing. I don't know why anybody wouldn't want to go ahead and start doing that. I think it's awesome, but I guess government, politics, right? Money. So we need to shift. I think that it'd be a great thing to shift, but I know that we have a lot of money invested in certain things that make our world go around. And if we took that away, we might go crashing a little bit, but we got to do something at some point. Otherwise, David Attenborough lived for nothing.
What a
He's been
guy.
trying to warn us for years. He's been trying to warn us for years. Yeah.
That guy's voice is just beautiful too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
You know, one of the
Yeah.
things that freaks me out about consciousness is that I would not exist, not just if my parents didn't, you know, conceive me at the exact time, but also if everything that lived on this earth didn't live before me. And that freaks me out because I feel like I'm such an individual and I'm a very philosophical person, but it makes me feel like more deterministic because it's almost like life is like itself is so interconnected that you would not have existed if everything
Yeah.
from the Big Bang didn't really happen, you know?
Right. Yeah. It's really interesting to kind of think about that it's like every time you're like, every day that passes is like a chapter in a book, and like this all happened to get to this point, and to be able to go back and start, say, at chapter 1, and even doing your own family's like heritage. Sometimes you're like, you know, you might have a person in the family that was adopted that's from a whole nother family now originally, because that's not part of your bloodline anymore. So it's like, and it's like, that comes to saying, dude, we're all connected. We're all probably related in some way or another, like, because we all started with whoever at chapter 1. You know what I'm saying?
Did we talk about the stoned ape theory last time?
Probably a little bit. I'm always down to talk about that.
Yeah, because I was talking about the drunken ape theory with do you know what that is?
I don't know.
I've talked about this. I've talked about this so much now. I'm sorry for all my listeners. This is the third time you're gonna hear it. Basically, ancestors really far down when they were coming down from the trees when we were actually in the trees, they're coming down to walk. One of the apes or one of the primates had a mutation that let them eat the fermented fruit that fell from the trees and kind of like rotted and fermented, so they could get more calories, so they wouldn't die. And so they had dehydrogenase, like the metabolism that lets them drink alcohol and have alcohol, and so that was very effective for humans, so it evolved into everybody. And so that's why people can get fucked up now and not just die, because before, like, if you give alcohol like all monkeys and stuff and all other, like mainly other primates, they die because it's so poisonous. But for humans, because of that one ancestor we have, we can drink alcohol. And now the same thing can be said, I think, with psychedelics. I think the way that we think and the way that we act can go back to ancient humans with mushrooms.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I definitely, there's a funny meme. It's like, you know, shout out to all the ancient Homo sapiens took one for the team, you know, and it was like they ate a mushroom and it wasn't a good one. It was like the bad one, but they let the other ones know that don't eat that one. Like, let's go to the other one. But yeah, I think that it's helped our evolution and our brain mentality. Maybe for the past couple hundred years, we've been kind of cut off from it due to government laws. But I think that after early Homo sapien, or maybe even Neanderthal, came across it and experienced it, you know, we interbred with Neanderthals. So we have Neanderthal DNA in Homo sapiens. So them, either they were probably fighting too, but a lot of them probably getting along, passing this information out. We ate this, you know, and then they eat it and have this experience. And it's like, you know, they're seeing shit with their own two eyes, and it's really like, it's there. Like, they believe what they just saw. And so they pass on this knowledge to someone else. And I think eventually it becomes like maybe a belief system, where it becomes like a sacrament or a ritual. And I think that that's how it becomes important. And it becomes a part of our diet. Even if we might do it once a month, we might do it once every 6 months. Maybe they only did it on the solstice. You know, a lot of it is lined up with astronomy. Like, they believed a lot of stuff was going on and everything was connected. And if they did this on a certain time, things would happen. And I think for thousands of years, it was probably a part of most ancient cultures' religion or diet to help them evolve. And then all of a sudden we're like cut off, and we're over here trying to gather these pieces. Like, what was it doing for them? I mean, you look back at the Greeks, and they're all holding little penis envy mushrooms and stuff. And the Greeks were like the pivot of modern civilization. They had most of the ideas, government. They had, how the cities worked out, like city planning. They had plumbing. They had all these different things that no other major like civilization had ever really had like that. They were like the pivotal modern architecture for us to kind of like build off of. And they're over here eating mushrooms like crazy. It's like, okay, maybe they got something there. But then you look at all these other countries, all these ancient civilizations that they mushroom statues. There's mushrooms in the hieroglyphs. There's mushrooms are everywhere. So we know that that was a very important substance that they were eating. And I think that maybe whatever is happening in the brain, it's interesting because you'll see a lot of the same style archetype art or beings or gods around the world. And it's not like this, it's not like the Mayans just hopped on a boat. I'm going to ride over here to like Iran really fast. But like, yo, guess what I found, and something was going on. They were having similar experiences. And that's what's interesting to me. So you can call it a hallucination, and we can with most psychedelics. But then you bring in like dimethyltryptamine, and I mean, I've had plenty of times where I'm like, yo, like, do you see that? And they're like, yeah, I see that. Was that a hallucination? That's a big question. So I like that kind of stuff. And as an artist, trying to depict that stuff, sometimes I'll depict my own opinions and my own thoughts about something. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's right, but it's cool to think about and paint it sometimes if I can get it. But I don't know. The psychedelic aspect I feel like has been a part of human culture since the beginning. Creativity, patterns is even in today's world. You'll see Mayan or Aztec Shipibo style patterns on purses and pocketbooks and shirts. And well, that's not a natural. I mean, it's a natural thing, but you're not going to see that naturally. But if you take a psychedelic substance, you'd say yes. So I think that that's really cool that you can really trace back a lot of our ways, our creativeness, our thoughts, our beliefs, our stories, our myths, all based on like psychedelic usage, but it doesn't get the credit. It really doesn't get the credit because it's a bad thing in our society. But I hope that changes. I think it's a great concept to think that if you want to learn about your future, you should really look back at your past. There's a lot of past that like we did a lot of bad shit, and we need to learn from that. But looking at like say our ancient cultures and their simplistic ways of believing certain things, I don't think that that's something we should dismiss. I think that they had it. They kind of had it figured out in a simplistic way that our modern age of our brains and our technology could play off of that and bring it into a new light, So I just think we need to study it more. I think that, hopefully that if it's legal in certain areas now that we really can do some really interesting studies, but it's unfortunate that it was psychologically put out there in our society that it's bad. So you have a lot of older generations that are like, no. A lot of newer generations are curious. But I think everybody should have the right to go explore their brain, whether it's in a health center or a community center where there's people around that can watch you and make sure it's all like regulated. I think that that'd be a great thing for people to be like, hey, like, you know, I've always wanted this, or I'm having these traumatic problems. I've heard that this helps, you know, instead of me illegally trying to do it or flying to another country to do it, I could just like do it at my local health center.
Do you know who Socrates is?
Socrates?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was one of them smart guys back
He's
then.
like the founder of the Socratic method, which is like questioning everything. And he's like basically the founder of philosophy, I would say. He's one of them.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
So when you talk about ancient Greece and all these like past things and all these experiences, I'm wondering if Socrates was just like a psychedelic head. Or he was a visionary guy. Like he took psychedelics and he thought a lot.
I think people like that, he's obviously a very intelligent person in his era. I think that people were more responsible with those chemicals. And yeah, I think he was definitely experiencing this stuff, but I think he was doing it more in experimental rather than going out. You know, we're over here thinking we're over here partying, having fun with it. I think he was trial and erroring stuff. I think he was experimenting. I think even me growing up, I would eat acid mushrooms and draw. I was interested in the stories about Jimi Hendrix taking a couple hits of mescaline and playing his guitar, and he was his guitar. I mean, he was that. I mean, there's all these interesting stories of how creators were influenced by a psychedelic and it like propelled them more. And that's what I was like, wow, you know, I mean, Watson and Crick, let's create the DNA strand. Hold on, let's eat a couple hits of acid first. Wow, there it is. I see it. They don't teach us that in school.
I did not know that at all.
Watson and Crick. So it was a woman that come up with the concept, but the 3D model, they had no idea how to display it until they ate some acid. I think that that's amazing. Like, you know, being able to visually see something in a three-dimensional form to give you an idea to go about making it. I think that's how a lot of the, now here's a theory. I might have talked about this last time. I don't know. Like I always say, I'm an amateur scientist. I have an art degree. I pretend I'm Indiana Jones because I love that kind of stuff. But I've had some dimethyltryptamine experiences from two different extracts of plants. You got the mimosa derivative and you got the acacia derivative. Well, the acacia derivative, acacia tree, very prominent in the Middle East, Egypt. It was the Egyptians' tree of life. I mean, it produced nicotine, dimethyltryptamine, a few other chemicals that they could use on like a daily basis. They're
the
very
coca plant was one of them, right? Like cocaine.
I could see them getting down on that. Yeah, I think that whatever this plant was producing a lot of different things that they identified it as a tree of life, a plant of life. It produced all these different things that benefits us. And one of them was DMT. And I think that was a very prominent one that they would use a lot. But then you have mimosa derivative. Mimosa's prominent in North and South America. So my first time ever getting off on DMT, I saw, well, can't really see it. I'll take you over there. You see that pattern all over your skin?
Yeah.
I saw that over everything. I saw that over my friends. It went to the tree. I mean, everything just turned into this triangle diamond pattern. And it was breathing. And I was in amazement. I mean, my eyes were open. I was seeing it with my own two eyes. I was like, wow, this is really amazing stuff. You know, you come out of it and you're like what just happened? I mean, this whole effect of your mind and body is very interesting. So I saw that and I was like, wow, that's very interesting. Later on, I tried some mimosa derivative. And the mimosa derivative, I've got an example. Can't really see it. Maybe it's not the best, but like this pattern on her arm. Oh, basically, it's like a block puzzle piece looking pattern.
Yeah.
The Shipibo tribe in South America, they use that kind of style. It has longer appendages that come off in round areas. But the mimosa derivative, I've saw that pattern is like a puzzle piece, but they're all the same shape, and they all fit together. It was on the ground. It was everywhere. And I was like, dude, this is wild, because basically, your first couple times you're just thinking like, hey, DMT is DMT, and I'm just going to see a bunch of visuals. But I started noticing that I was only seeing these certain visuals on certain extracts. So I was like, here's my amateur archaeologist coming out. I was like, they've baffled scientists for years on where did they get the idea to build a pyramid? Where did they see that 90-degree angle? And I was like, wait, the acacia derivative is in the Middle East and Egypt, and it looks like a pyramid. But the mimosa derivative is South American, and it looks like a block pyramid. Whoa. And I was just like, bro, has anybody ever considered this? And here I am, just like barely a 3.0 in college, and I'm like having this thought, I'm like, do I need to hit up Graham Hancock right now? Surely he's thought about this stuff. Like I want to know answers. And I've always considered that. I've always thought about the fact that, there's no 90-degree angles in nature, maybe in a couple of crystals, but a pyramid shape? And on top of that, a block pyramid shape? That's some mathematical stuff. That is perfectly on point. So maybe somebody like Socrates, not saying Socrates, but seeing a pattern like that and taking it from that realm and applying it in your own realm, drawing it and building onto it. Did they do something like that? I mean, they were obviously very intelligent to be able to build that stuff to begin with. Mm-hmm. So who's to say that they couldn't figure something out like that and build it in a 3D. And I'm over here taking, people want to be like, oh yeah, aliens built that stuff. I love believing in aliens, but I want to give a Homo sapien a little bit more credit to being able to figure out this stuff on their own. We've done a lot of studies with Egypt. We're pretty confident now that slaves didn't build the pyramids. Anybody that worked on the pyramids volunteered for the pyramids, which makes you wonder, they know that these pharaohs were not found in the pyramids. We labeled them as their
burial ground.
There was no bodies found in there. So there's a lot of scientists that go against the norm and say that this was a charging station of some type. And then you want the UFOologist out here saying, yeah, it was powering the mothership that was maybe the obelisk or the monoliths that were kind of like Tesla's little energy fields, and maybe the pyramid formed some kind of energy. I mean, it was gold plated. Gold's a great conductor. At one point, there is a place under the Great Pyramid. It's called the King's Chamber. There's a part under the King's Chamber that's lined with copper. It's a tunnel called the Queen's Chamber. There is water erosion going through it. So now they're debating that quite possibly the Nile over so many thousands of years would move across. And at one point, it literally ran right up under the pyramids and would charge them as if it was like a windmill or a water turbine, and charge them. And then they have energy, some kind of electric energy or something going on. This is just theory, but I think it's an interesting theory to think that they were up to something more than what we were thinking, but it's not alien related. They were just using a different source of power to help themselves. So, I don't know what's going on. I think over time we might find more clues. I mean, they find stuff in Egypt all the time. It's really interesting. So one day, if they don't hide it from us, they don't show a lot of stuff that doesn't fit the timeline. They won't even put it in museums because they don't know how to explain it. So hopefully we'll run across some stuff that's explainable, but I think there's a lot of stuff out there that we might not be able to explain until we reach in our modern society an understanding and a form of what they were doing in our own way, and then being like, oh, that's what they were doing, kind of thing.
Sorry, I just saw. I'm like, there's like a quilt almost behind me. Oh, we were talking about quilts, or in front of me, I guess, and it's moving, and I don't know why it's moving because there's no window open. Oh, the vent. Weird. The vent's over there, though.
Oh, I was like, man, we could do a paranormal episode with you.
No, but what you were saying about Graham Hancock, I was like, instead of Graham Hancock and Joe Rogan, we got John Gay and Collin Weir.
Yeah, we'll make it, dude. We'll definitely like get up against Joe Rogan's podcast. I think we could pull that off.
I think we can too. No, dude, yeah. I talk about Joe Rogan a lot because he's the one person that everybody can look to learn something. You know what I mean? He's
very open. He's like he's not a part of this culture. He's not a part of this culture. He's kind of just, he can mingle with everyone and kind of take ideas and stuff like that. Yeah, he's always been pretty cool. Too.
I try to take that in my life because I do that in my own life anyways. And so when I started this, like I think I told you last time, I didn't mean to start this. When I did, I was like, all right, well, everyone's like, you got to have a structure. I talked to a bunch of people who are not as successful as Joe Rogan, first off. And there's two categories of like podcasts. There's like the people who like have like a niche, maybe it's business, something. And then there's the people who are already famous and then they create a podcast, right?
Right.
And I was like, well, fuck you guys. Like, I'm just going to do whatever I want. And I'm going to emulate like Joe Rogan, just have people on because I like talking to people anyways. Like, you're not going to tell me what I can do with my life. I like talking to everybody. And that's the reason I can have you on. And then I can have a virologist on who I just had on last time.
Yeah.
And going off of that, I just had a historian on not too long ago. And we talked about the pyramids, and the description like you give versus the description he gives are so different because one studies like the factual. So he's talking about how the great leaders of Egypt built the pyramids. So he was telling me that they started with mastabas, which are basically mud. Like they built basically like big mud things, and then you get like they grow and they do the pyramids, but like they were like, and he even told me that like they had like they would put like frozen meat on their like injuries and wounds and stuff like that to heal. And so there's something about ancient Egypt that fascinates people because there is a jump from Egypt to Greece. Like Greece is like the first humans like of us, that we like can kind of relate to. But like Egyptians, they're still, and then in Mayans too, they're still far enough away where you're like, they're so ancient we don't understand, because ancient Greece and ancient Rome, we're like, all right, those are humans, those are people.
Right.
You look back at the Mayans and the Egyptians and you kind of feel distant from them. And so I want to know where the interconnectiveness is, like what happened in between those two societies or those four societies,
Have you ever heard, I mean, these are theories too, they're fun theories to think about, like Atlantis being a part. There's one of these theories out there where it talks about the children of the Atlanteans. And when Atlantis was destroyed, few of them survived and they spread out through the world. They went to Egypt, South America, Greece, China, all these different like major civilizations, and they spread their knowledge. And like, that's how they were able to do all these certain things. And obviously it's just theory. It's a fun one to really think about because that's one of those, it's like, it's still around. It's like I don't even know what to compare it to. It's interesting that it's like Bigfoot or something. It's a myth. It's been around for a long. I mean, who wrote about it? Was it Socrates? Who went and wrote about Homer?
It was Homer, yeah.
Homer. He wrote about Atlantis. And that's a long fucking time ago.
I mean, he also wrote about the underworld too. So that he was on to something.
Yeah. And there's a lot of skeptics out there that think he was just writing stories. It's for people to still be hunting evidence of Atlantis, and sometimes finding weird artifacts that, you ever heard of Bimini Road?
No, what is that?
It's out there. So out in the Florida, and like you have Florida, then you have the Keys. You have Bimini's out there. Bimini is like this little island floating out in between like Cuba and Florida. There was a lot of scuba divers that went out there, and they found these. It looks like, think of like the Roman roads back in the day, except they're not little bricks. These are like big things of like stone, and they're all large and rectangular, or maybe large and square, but they all sit right in front of each other, and they just go out into the ocean. So you got a lot of people out there that are like, that's a road. That's evidence that it was going to Atlantis. I hear Atlantis, I think of it at the Atlantic Ocean. I would think that Atlantis was, if it was real, close to the Mediterranean Sea area, maybe off the coast of Spain, like the Canary Islands, or I forgot the name of those islands. Right off the coast of Portugal and Spain, right there.
Yeah.
I've always considered if Atlantis was real, if it was a real continent or something, it would have been right out in that area. But something I just learned recently, I didn't know this. It's kind of changing the subject, but it just popped in my head. We have 7 continents. Is that right? 6 continents?
North America, South America, Antarctica, if you're going to count that, Europe, Asia, Australia is one. Is Australia one?
Yeah. And yeah.
So Australia and then Oceania. Yeah. Or Australia is Oceania. So I think there's 6.
Okay. So the 7th continent.
Oh, Africa. No, Africa.
So the 8th continent.
Yeah.
So there is, I forgot who wrote this. I think it's something that is actually being investigated right now. Super cool. They were talking about the 8th continent. There was a guy who was discovering the Philippines and all these areas, right? And there was a belief that there was another continent besides Australia.
From Pangea?
Yeah, but it's sunk.
Ooh.
But they thought it was still there. It's Zealandia. It's New Zealand. New Zealand is just a little portion of the continent. And if you look at an aerial geographic view, you can see the continent up under the water. And so they're like trying to do this evidence now saying that Zealandia, I think is what they were calling it, was actually an actual continent that has not been considered to be a continent, because you got New Zealand, it's still an island, but it's huge up under it. So I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
No, that is cool. And it makes you think, because like, dude, I'm fascinated with the human mind, because I'm an idiot. I'm an ape. I'm just a person. I don't know that much.
Amen.
But people like to say I'm intelligent and stuff like that, but I've just always been fascinated with like why intelligence by itself exists. And something I always come to, and I want to know your opinion on it, is, Elon Musk even said this, we're the humans just here to create the most advanced intelligence, which is AI, and as we see, like did you watch The Social Dilemma?
I think I watched it. Yeah. I know what it was talking about. I can't remember all the aspects to it, but
yeah, but like when we see things like that, we're like, dude, like the internet has a consciousness of its own, and
It's getting there.
it's like, well, even like just like the way that we feed to it, like the way that it works as a net. The net is a mind almost, and the way that what were you gonna say? No,
I feel like it's gonna be like I was talking with the plants. We depend on it so much that we'll do anything to like keep it around, and it is conscious enough to know that, in a sense. I mean, have you ever seen the Animatrix, the cartoon?
yes.
HBO. So just like the beginning of that, where they talk about it's like the end of the world part 1 and end of the world part 2, where it gives you the reason why robots and humans started fighting. It was a humans created robot or AI, and we used it to our advantage to the point where we didn't care about it. It was our slave. We didn't have any emotion for it, right? Like we would our pet dog or cat or something. And it gained consciousness and realized how it was being treated. And it was one robot. It was like in that episode, they talked about how it was like the Million Machine March. And all these robots started marching because of this one robot who turned on its owners, and he murdered the entire family. And all the robots realized at one time, wow, like, what are we? And then they turned on us. And we actually wanted to live cohesively with them, but they wanted to be their own thing. And then as humans, we got greedy. It's really interesting. Everybody out there in the Facebook, I mean, in the digital world, watch the Animatrix. It's really awesome. I watched that for the first time tripping on mushrooms. I went out and bought the DVD the very next day. That was a wild thing to watch. High on mushrooms, but it is really kind of educational in a sense of, as a human, I mean, you're getting a perspective from a robot on how the humans are treating the robots. So it's really kind of cool. I love that. Those 2 episodes were really eye-opening in a sense of kind of like the Terminator. I mean, it's almost like they've been warning us. It was inevitable. People were seeing this fruition come to life 30, 40 years ago. Hell, they've been writing books about War of the Worlds and stuff like that. The robots were already in the ground, like people have thought about this concept, and I'm a true believer. If you can think it up, it can be done. At some point you can do it. So if somebody was thinking this stuff up 40, 50, 60 years ago, it's kind of scary because we're still kind of on that path. But have we learned anything? Like, if we create this thing, like not taking advantage of it, not treating it like, I mean, that's our creation. It's like your baby. You want to make sure your baby is okay and all this stuff. So the Matrix, the Animatrix, was basically saying that humans didn't treat it like that, and it gained consciousness and emotion and turned on us because it was sad and mad. So it's like gaining that consciousness as AI, I think that's very likely. I think integrating with AI is very likely, which scares me in a sense of, that, are you going to be able to live forever? Is that good? Is that natural? I believe in reincarnation. So I'm like, will that throw off our cycles? Is it inevitable? Was it already basically like certain things, like it's already going to happen, or it's led up to this point that's inevitable. That's going to happen. But how we go about doing it. But yeah, I can see us becoming robots, evolving into that.
Neuralink.
Yeah, I can see that kind of stuff. I just that's something that kind of worries me. I mean, imagine the wrong person getting a hold of that. I mean, it's like something you'd see in a comic book Spider-Man episode, or, you know, the evil bad guy gets a hold of something that makes him live forever. And then he gets away before we can take care of the problem. And then we got some like madman that's out here capable of destroying us at any given time because he can't die. You know, I've seen enough science fiction movies to kind of be like, is that good?
Well, not even that. Like what you were saying about like how humans, like how they treat, like in the Animatrix, like how humans treat other things, you know, other the robots. Like I think we're the only species that kills its own species at a high rate, right? So I looked it up just to see, and the deadliest animals. You want to know the top 10 deadliest animals for humans? Number one is mosquitoes.
For humans?
Number one is mosquitoes, because all right, that isn't.
Wow.
I mean, it makes sense because it's of it's probably from malaria, right?
Right.
Number two, though, is humans. Homicides only, not suicides included.
Wow.
If suicide was included, it'd probably be number one, because that is killing another human. And then snakes, dogs, the tsetse flies. I'm gonna look that up right now. I'm just while we're here. Wow, the tsetse fly, sometimes spelled tsetse. So it's T. I don't know if this is how you say it, but it's actually I'm on it. So it's Z. Yeah, it's tsetse. So it's also known as tick flies, are large biting flies that inhabit much of tropical Africa. So I'm guessing it's probably a lot of disease and.
Yeah. They're just carrying disease.
And then number 6, Asian bugs. Do you know what those are?
No. Asian bugs?
Yeah, they're Reduvilidae, are a large cosmopolitan family of the order of something, among the something, and together with something. I don't know. These are words. Almost a species of terrestrial ambush predators. Most other they're just bugs, I guess. And then freshwater snails, scorpions.
What? Why would a freshwater snail? They're poisonous?
Freshwater snails are a gastropod something which lives in the fresh. I'm sorry for everyone who's listening to this because I do not know how to say these words. They live in freshwater. There are many different families. They are found throughout the world in various habitats, ranging from ephemeral. See, I don't know these words. Ephemeral pools to largest lakes, and in small seeps and springs. Why do they kill humans though?
That's weird. It must be a disease thing too.
I don't know. I'm guessing because they're like leeches almost.
Yeah. Or or maybe it's like if they live in water or near water a lot, maybe it's something that makes us sick if we drink the water in it. I don't know, but that's interesting. You don't think of a snail being a deadly.
No, yeah. Human. Why is it deadly? Oh, honestly, it might be on that. It might be on here. Let me just figure this out real quick. 10,000 humans a year, though.
Damn.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's some kind of like poisonous one that's in a certain country.
And then it's scorpions, roundworms, and tapeworms. Wow. Guess how many people? So mosquitoes kill about 1 million people a year, which is really a lot. And that's then crazy. Humans, homicides only kill 500,000. So, I mean, back off the digression, just to think that we kill 500,000 of ourselves, not including our killing like ourselves, like 500,000 murder on murder is so many people.
Yeah.
And there's no other species that does that.
I saw there was like a thing, the Brooklyn Zoo or something. I saw it on Facebook not too long ago, but it's like in 1930 or 40 something, they had an exhibition at the zoo, and it was like the most dangerous animal in the world, and all the people wanted to go see it, and they walked through and they get up there and it was a mirror, and you're like, woo, like that's deep. That was in the 30s and 40s. So, yeah, we're dangerous. That's for sure. I think that it comes with our. I don't know. I don't want to say everybody's dumb, but we're ignorant in a lot of things. I seem we can't learn from our past. Yeah, so that's unfortunate, and I think money has a lot to do. Somebody might go into politics with the right mindset, really want to change stuff, and then, you know, everything you worked for might be stripped from you if they don't want you to say something, you know? So then you're part of a club that you might not want to be a part of, but if you want your job, you have to be in it, kind of thing. So it's just like, yeah, screwy.
I have a question. So Neuralink, we talked about, I brought that up a little bit, and you said you were afraid of that. So I was talking about this with somebody, it might have been my mom actually. So his thing is like, it will help Alzheimer's, but I don't know if it will help the already damaged. Like, will it create you already? Will it stop you from getting more damage when you have, like, for dementia and Alzheimer's? Or will it create a new person? You know, will it be a new person that's in that, like your vessel?
Right. You know, I think that you know, if we were doing something to benefit mankind, and say we had Alzheimer's is a problem, and like you said, would it fix it, or would it, you know, stop it from continuing? I think that's whenever we could take, if we really wanted to go about it the right way and like heal our mental state, our wiring, make it as if we were in our prime again before transferring our consciousness into, then that's when we need to be exploring mycelium and mushrooms. I mean, it's literally our brain. Neurolinks. Mycelium talks to each other, and all the plants grow through it, so talking to the plants too. Imagine cutting a road in the ground. I mean, it's only like third or fourth top layer of topsoil. So you cut a road in the ground, you're cutting off that connection. That's like your Alzheimer's. They can't communicate anymore. They got to go around it. They can grow it, but at that point, they're cut off. So, like, how are they growing it? How they grow it back? And that's something that we should be trying to figure out. That's our cue to, like, hey, we need to regrow these, like, neurotransmitters here, so they're actually synapsing and we're getting messages sent before transferring into an AI. I mean, if we're wanting to make ourselves like as best as we can be, you know, and say I was for putting consciousness in the robots, human robot AI forms, you know, I would want to be that, hey, I want to feel like I'm in my prime at 25, 26 years old, mental capacity, I'm still learning, like I'm still able to learn. I think that'd be important too, is still be able to learn if you're in a robot. I'm sure you can, but I think you should also be able to do natural things that we would have been able to do in our body, like being able to heal. I guess we'd only have the brain in there. Well, I guess we wouldn't even have the brain in there. That's what's so wild. You're taking your soul out of your body. That's space. That's space travel to me. I think that's what a lot of maybe Elon thought about this. Like, here I am, an amateur person again, thinking about this shit. Time, like space travel, like traveling to Mars. We've always seen in science fiction movies, they're freezing their bodies, cryogenic freezing state for 30, 40 years, and the time it takes them to get there, so that their body doesn't age. That's your downfall. Time, and your body is aging. But to take your consciousness, your soul, out of this vessel and put it in a jar on a spaceship without your body there to grow old. So when you get there, or there's some kind of way for somebody to take your consciousness that's in that jar and put it in a space AI suit to walk around Mars. Hell, that we can live on Mars that way. We don't have to breathe oxygen. We don't have to do that stuff. mean, if you smoke DMT, that's what I think's happening. Your consciousness is being taken out of your body. That's why your body's like this. Your body thinks you're asleep. Dreaming, I think our consciousness leaves our body. I think that's what's happening or something, because like otherwise, we're rejuvenating our body, we're resting, but I think a lot of times we leave this vessel. It could go into a whole multiverse system where when we're dreaming, we're living another life in another body in another dimension kind of thing. Who knows? And then when we wake up, we're living this life. But our dreams are like, wow, I was somewhere. I went somewhere. Felt like I was in a different place. I always think that was always been interesting. But I think taking on.
I vividly dream. Do you vividly dream like that?
Okay. I have to say, I've asked a few people about this stuff. So I shit you not. 10 years, must have been 10 years. Every time I would dream, and every time I would, I guess, say remember my dream. And this was like, I would remember my dreams pretty often, maybe every other night, maybe every night. But every time I would remember it, I was in the same house. And like, I could draw the neighborhood it was in. I know exactly what the house looks like. I know what the front looks like. I know what the back looks like. I have had all kinds of experiences at that house. Every time I go back, I can be having a different experience, but look out the window and see the pool in the backyard where I had another experience and another dream. For 10 years, I'd be going through in and out this house, having ghosts in the house, being in my bedroom, looking out the back window, going through like the swimming pool. There's alligators in the pool. Like on the back part of the fence, there is a music festival venue. I've been at the music festival venue looking at my backyard. Like, I can't explain it. I've researched it. People, like some scientists think that if you're dreaming about a house, then that is your vessel. Me. Like, how to relate them two together, I don't know, but for 10 years. And then all of a sudden, like overnight, I started going to, well, it's a different house. I'm on a beach. I have had experiences out in the ocean. I've had experiences on the shoreline. I've had experiences at the house that is on the beach that I go to. And this has been going on for a couple years now. So it's always a landscape and it's always connected. But yeah, the house that I used to go to is not connected to the new one. It's really weird. I don't go to the other house anymore. I haven't had a dream of going to that house in a couple of years now. But for 10 years.
Do you think that means that you've changed? Like you said, it might be your vessel. Like it might be you.
That's a great way of looking at that. I've never thought about it. The feeling that I get is the new place that I go that is on the beach. I have a strong feeling of my dad being there. The old house, I had more of a feeling of my mother, which it wasn't always about my mom, but I've had more experiences at the new place with my dad being around. Like weird shit, being on a road on a mountain, but it doesn't feel like we're in America. It feels like we're in the Alps or somewhere. And I'm going to ski. I remember he's taking me to go snowboarding or something. And I've been on that mountain road a couple of times in the dreams, but the mountain is only down from the beach. So it's like, it's all connected. It's like I can still see where, I know where I'm at. But I don't have lucid dreams. I'm not in my dream saying, I'm dreaming. I'm like wherever I'm at and doing, like I am doing it there, and it's really weird. But I can't say I've ever had really a lucid dream where I knew I was dreaming or anything.
You know, something that's freaky that I was talking about with my mom the other day. I don't know if you've had anyone really super close to you pass away or not, but in dreams, it seems that like sometimes the faces of living people change, but you still know it's them. But the faces, like you can like, it's not like it's changing like dramatically, but it changed, and it's like
Right.
that's not right. But the faces of people who have passed away are always the exact same. And it's always how you remember them the best. And that blows my mind because it almost seems like they are visiting you.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I'm a firm believer in that. I would never dispute that. I think that is very, very likely for our past family members or souls to come back and visit us. I think there is a resting period after we die, you know, whatever you want to believe, you know, it's like whether you go to heaven or you go to whatever heaven you might believe in, or if you think you're reincarnated, I think that there is purgatory always sounds bad. Sounds like an unknown kind of thing, but it's like a resting spot for your soul. And I think that maybe there are times where we might go into dream states where we're in that spot, and that allows an old family member to come in contact. I'm a firm believer in getting visions and you know, what do you want to call it, signals from the other side through dreams. I think that I do believe that old souls or past family members try to communicate with you and try to tell you things in a dream, so you come out trying to like piece it together, because that might be the most part that you remember the most, you know, that part of the dream, very intense part of the dream. You might not remember anything else, but you're like, I remember that part where my great grandmother came back and she said these words to me. Like, why am I remembering that? That I think that things like that, it's like, if something like that happens, you can't figure it out at that point in time. There's going to be a point in time in your life where it literally smacks you right in the face. And you're like, oh, that's what that was about. Like, I'm having this experience right now, and it was leading up to this. I think that that's true. I definitely believe in stuff like where they'll try to contact you, almost like guardian angel kind of stuff. They're trying to protect you. They're trying to talk to you. I even think about maybe people who have died, been murdered or something like that, coming back and trying to communicate, because it might not get solved, or they might not find who actually did it, or they got the wrong story or something like that. Yeah, I think that comes with our sixth sense. You know, some people pick up on these things, some people don't. I think we all have it. I think we have a ton of senses, tons and tons and tons of senses that we don't really understand, know how to use, or even are aware of in a sense. So I think our joking sixth sense thing, I think that's a real thing. It's just being aware of it, open to it. I think everybody has it. Just some people are more capable of
using it almost.
Yeah, they see it, they feel it. You know, I've had a lot of weird incidences in my life. I would never say I was a medium, but I've seen entities, not on anything, you know, just like ghost, what I would consider a spirit or a ghost. I've seen quite a few of those, but not say as clear as some other people have seen entities, like seen them wearing actual clothes or anything. I usually see like shadowy silhouettes in doorways, and I have incidences of things flying off the wall, but I really feel it. Like I'll feel the energy. And I'm also a firm believer in how energy makes you feel. Like say there might be a spirit that doesn't mean you any harm. And a first human instinct is to be scared, but to feel a comforting feeling come over you, to be like, I'm not here to scare you. Like, it's okay. Picking up on that comforting feeling is a sixth sense. Like, oh, I shouldn't be worried. I'm trusting my instinct. Like, it's like your mind doesn't know, but your soul remembers, you know? And I think that that's a thing where your soul's like, hey, it's cool. Like, chill. And I think that could happen to anybody without having any kind of weird psychedelic experience. But definitely on psychedelics, I really do pick up and use that kind of energy feel, because everything else is so confusing. Seeing stuff, hearing sounds, you're like, what's going on? But, you know, maybe you run into somebody that you don't feel comfortable around. And maybe it's because you're tripping, but your gut is like, you just leave. Like maybe this person might take advantage and steal your wallet because they know you're fucked up. But your gut's like, you don't need to be around this person because you feel weird energy from them. So I definitely pick up on that and use it in my everyday life and in my having my psychedelic experiences. But, you know, yeah, all that sixth sense stuff, I really believe in it. I think we're capable of all kinds of stuff. You know, I think a lot of the magic and alchemy and all this weird stuff, we just hocus pocus, you know, curses, and I mean, started somewhere. It's a curse word. So you think about a curse word, it's a sound, it's a vibration coming out of your mouth. So I heard this, I can't remember who this was. I always wish I could find this video. Well, it's of a rapper. He was a rapper guy, I remember. He's very intelligent, talking about how in ancient times that, we'll say like nowadays, humans, we've gotten, he considered it, he's like, we've gotten lazy with how we speak. And we speak with our lips and our tongue up here. And we speak like this, and we use the fronts of our mouth. He's like, in ancient times, we speak with the backs of our throat. And then those vibrational sounds were very strong energy fields that would come out. And I mean, you think about a cat purring. It's a healing vibration that they're doing. Well, who's to say that we weren't doing stuff like that? Who's to say that's where curse words didn't come from? Like, we're speaking an energy out. Energy is real. Maybe you affected that person with it. And over the years, it's just like, I'm cussing, shit, damn, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, that's just a word. I think when it comes to a curse word, it's not anything that we would consider a word, or maybe it's a lost language. You know, it's something that like ancient Sumerian or something, like speaking with that back part of your throat. And when he said that, I was blown away. I was like, wow, that is so interesting, because it kind of opens up doorways to understanding a lot of hocus pocus stuff, magic, how we were doing things like speaking in tongues and using that vibration instead of this in the front, in the back. I mean, monks do it. You know, it's a real thing. We just kind of overlook it, I think. We really think about how music is such a huge part of most people's lives.
And you really feel like the music when you're listening to it.
Yeah. So they did a study. This man did a study and said that your soul and your body would not be able to live without music. And so what he did is he tested it, and he would put himself, I forgot how he contained himself in this room in the dark. I mean, the walls were impenetrable by sound, right? And he says after a while, you start to hallucinate. You'll see things because you're in complete darkness. But then after a while, when your brain realizes that that's not going to happen, you start to pick up on all of your body, your insides. You'll hear your heartbeat clear as day. He's like, you can't survive without a beat. And it's like, wow, like your body's always feeling it. And for people to be like, music's cool. I mean, I've met some people that music's not a huge part of their life, but maybe don't realize that they turn on the radio every time they get in the car. Like music's always, and I literally couldn't paint if I didn't have music going. I couldn't do it.
That's interesting because I know this girl, Haley Torres. I had her on the podcast too, and she paints to Taylor Swift. Like that's like her inspiration. And she like can't not paint without music. And I think that's a big artist thing. And so I actually create music myself. My whole family, like my mom's side, is very music oriented. And not that I stayed away from it from a while, but it just kind of drove me. Everything that I've done that's creative has kind of pulled me into it. I've never really like seeked it. Like I played viola in middle school, things like that. And then I played guitar too. And then I've always like heard things and been able to play it on guitar, piano, but I never tried it. And then like I started making music with my friend who's actually an artist now, and he's a music artist now. And a long time ago. And I can't, whenever I'm not podcasting or I'm not doing something creative, music's kind of my one thing. Writing music is kind of my one thing to feel, doing something creative. Hold on. I had a burp, but like going back to something you said about purgatory. I even like last year I took a creative writing class in college and not thinking anything of it. I don't like writing really. I didn't at first, but I wrote this story called Purgatory. And it was about a soldier at the Gettysburg War who died. And all he wanted to do was get back to his wife and kid. And the devil and Gabriel were arguing with each other about who gets him. And he was like, I don't even want to go with either of you. I want to go home to my family. And they were like, basically like, all right, we'll leave you here then. You decide where you want to go, And so he, at the end of the story I wrote, he was stuck in purgatory trying to figure out how to get out of there. And I was thinking about writing almost like a short little writing series. I haven't wrote since that class, but it was making me think about something. It's like purgatory and things like that, and just creativeness. It's such a part of our lives. Now everyone's creative. People have their own different aspects of how they get out that creative energy, but everyone has something in them that they can innovate. Like ideas are creations. You were saying this earlier, and there's something about the human condition that creation is so important. And I think if we didn't have it, like if you didn't have art, if I didn't have, podcasting it's an art form. It's talking. Talking is an art form. If I didn't have something to make me like this music, anything that I do that's creative, if I didn't have creativity in I would die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so just being, I think it's just part of the human condition is just doing things that are more creative than, animals really.
Yeah. They say that's what separates us from animals, creativity. I have to say, I've seen a lot of interesting things that animals can do. What is it? I think it was like a caterpillar or something, and maybe it was like a certain crab. It would make its own shell or make its own cocoon or chrysalis, and it would use natural objects that it would find. But if you regulated what it could find, it would you'd give it beads and jewels and feathers and all these things. It would use what it had, and it made this beautiful. And most animals instinctively, it's interesting, if they're making something, it's always it's usually very, what's the word, divine proportion, I guess. The nautilus shell is fractal, but if the shell's made naturally, then that's made naturally. crab or whatever might be making its own shell still makes it in a certain kind of way. So it's really interesting that it's like instinctively in certain animals. There's a certain fish that when it attracts its mate, like it beats its tail on the floor of the ocean in a circle, and different, like, you know, you got different sizes of the circle. It's a perfect circle, and it's like a mandala, but he's just attracting his mate. But he's making this perfect circled mandala in the sand. And you're like, you know, I guess they can be creative if you look at it that way, but they're just doing their natural thing. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to us, we are capable of, like, calling it creativity. Like, yeah, like I did this, and that's really it's not a survival thing. Because animals live to survive. They go out and hunt. They go out and feed every morning so they can go back home and take care of their you know, their babies in the nest, and then the babies grow up, and then, you know, their lifespans are, most of them are pretty short. So they have this instinct way of living their life to survive. And then we have humans that we're capable of creating something because we don't have to go out and hunt our food right now. And that was a big question about the cave dwellers, like ancient Homo sapien, when we were finding pictures of the horses and the mammoths and the bison and all that stuff in those caves. You know, they were like, why are they painting these animals? So the first thought was, well, they were hunting these animals. That's what they were eating. Later on, I found out that's not the case at all. They were not eating those animals at all. But why were they drawing them on the wall? And they're like, well, maybe they like worship these animals. Well, shit. So if they're worshiping these animals, you know, we can understand them not eating, but like they're still drawing on the wall. So they're taking time out of their day to eat, to survive. And those, you know, I'm talking 30,000 years ago. They didn't go eat that day. They thought that creating this painting was more important. So to be able to sit down and document this thing on the wall, besides going out and like trying to hunt food with the rest of the crew that day, must have been really important to them. So I think that that's how creativity kind of spawned with us too, is like being capable of doing something like that, and it's thrilling other people around you. Other people can see it. Like, I'm doing something and you can interact with it too. Like, I think it's interesting how we kind of started all that stuff. But to be able to draw was a huge question. They're like, how did they get the idea to draw? And they did a huge study, and they pretty much convinced that it was an altered state of consciousness. And labeling it that way meant that they were hallucinating, whether it was a lack of oxygen in the cave or they were eating a mushroom. They never really said, but it was a altered state of consciousness. So they were hallucinating and most likely seeing patterns on the wall in front of them. And so they would take the charcoal stick or whatever and trace the pattern. And if you go back further in the cave, I mean, it's unbelievable that you'll see like these crazy squared off 90-degree angle patterns. It doesn't make sense, but the 90-degree angle and the square and the continuous line is there. Yeah, that hallucinating, that was your brain is just over here like and I mean, I like to think I could imagine what it was like, but we've been so exposed to certain things in our lifetime. We have completely different things than what they used to. We see completely different things than what they used to. So I think that them sitting down and trying to draw them, who knows what kind of pattern they were seeing, and then getting, you know, lost and then forgot what they were doing and then move on to something else, you know, like they were tripping. But with very small brain capacity at that time. But I can't say that they didn't have the same, they were just learning for the first time. It's almost like, say, hereditary stuff. After so long, it's just like you can be a baby and you grow up and things are normal. You know, you don't really question it. But like them, they're having these weird fucking experiences and they don't know how to describe it. They can't communicate with each other very well. There's no spoken language. You can draw on this wall and like communicate that way. Yeah, I don't know. That stuff's wild to think. All that stuff's so interesting to me. I wish I had a time machine, honestly, dude.
Yeah.
That I could just go back and just watch, like, see what they did. Like, when did we invent the wheel?
That's a great question.
Think about that. That is one of the most biggest inventions in Homo sapiens life in all of our time being on this planet. We've been here 150, 200,000 years, right? Why did we not document the will? How do we not know where the will came from? It blows my mind. Like, that just blows my mind. That is one of the biggest inventions ever, and we don't have any document of it. So, or how it even became a fruition. Like, did they cut a tree down and look at it sideways? It's like, oh wow, look, just cut it right there. Now we got like a smaller version of this tree or something. I don't know. It's just, how did they come up with it? I wish I had a time machine.
I had a question for you earlier that I didn't ask you, so I want to ask you it now. What are your thoughts on burial or the burial practices of humans? Because you were talking about how trees like die and they kind of, and I was thinking of how they kind of like go back to the earth, and humans have become so like, I mean, cremation's almost like that, but not really in a sense. And burial in a casket with all these chemicals in them, it's clearly not.
Yeah.
It's rewarding. It's not rewarding to the earth. So what are your thoughts on it?
You see all kinds of different burials throughout mankind. Obviously, the important people are usually put alone, and they might have their followers on the sides, but they're all maybe piled or in one big grave. He's usually separated, and he's in his own little chamber. I think that had maybe something to do with they did believe in an afterlife. And that they might still need their body or something. I think that I think that they noticed how animals decomposed on the ground. I'm sure they walked up on decomposing animals in the woods at times and saw, worms, and half of it's in the dirt, and it looks like grass is growing around it, mushrooms are growing off of it. So I think that they had an understanding that, like, wow, we just kind of go back into the earth, and then we become that, but our bodies are gone. So if our important people, let's separate them so that they need their body, they still need their body. So maybe that had something to do with it. Then you have like ancient warriors who wanted to be burned on a boat that was going across. Sounds badass. I mean, hell, that sounds awesome. I think cremation is I don't think cremation is as bad as embalming like we do in our Western cultures these days. Mummifying was really cool. Also an aspect of, we want to keep the bodies around because we think we might need them in the afterlife, kind of thing. And trying to preserve it. But embalming, thank God that it's in a box and it's not being spread into the dirt because all them chemicals. And I mean, you'd imagine a graveyard that didn't have a coffin that was sealed and all those chemicals, and the grass probably wouldn't grow. And I think they only do that nowadays so that they can have basically an open casket and they can view their loved one last time. But the toxicness and what it does to the earth, I think that's definitely a man-made thing of thinking up that's probably been exercised from past times or where they're trying to preserve a certain body. Because in our time, in our era, like, we're all important. We are all important. But we really do think that we are a one of a kind, and we are all to be cherished. And in ancient times, it was just the king or the pharaoh or some important person like that. And everybody else was just everybody else. But nowadays, we all want to be the king and the queen. And our family members like services that way when we pass on. Yeah, my dad, he's like, I want to be cremated. My mom, she might want to be cremated too. But my dad wants to do that because a funeral costs so much. It's expensive. Being a little vase, being burned, he jokes, he's like, I think it's $85, you know? So I don't mind that. If I had to have the option of being embalmed or cremated, I definitely want to be cremated because, I mean, you think about ash, you think about a forest fire and how the ash goes back into the earth and it nutrients and all that good stuff. I can see that being fine. I definitely want to benefit the earth
somehow
when I pass. Yeah. I like those tree pods. Those are super cool. But being a weird artist kid, I also want to have a badass tombstone where I'm like, hands are coming out of the top and it looks like I'm like still coming back. And that's just my
artist take.
Yeah. But I don't know what's going to happen whenever that time comes. But I'd be down for a tree, but I'd be pissed off if somebody came along when they cut my tree down. You know, that's one of those things where I'm kind of iffy because who knows what's going to happen in 50 to 100 years.
With trees.
I mean, you're like, you might have some preserved land right now, but you might not have some preserved land in 50 years.
So back to our conversation, you know, burial aside, we were talking about death earlier and everything, you know. One thing that fascinates me about death is that I feel like we don't know enough, and maybe we'll never know enough about how the universe works and why energy can't be created nor destroyed to say that will not exist, you know. But also it's the question, it's the mind versus body question, it's the synapses question. Are we a part of this experience or are we up here, you know? And I feel like you said like you feel like you're not just the body when you go on an experience. And I feel like that's a lot of ways, you know, you feel like you're like somebody sitting inside of a meat sack looking through the eyeballs and experiencing life, but up here.
Yeah, I've thought about, I've had all kinds of theories on my belief system, I guess. Like I've gone from this to that to not knowing to I think I know to nope, I don't know anything. And I keep going back to like, I really like the reincarnation theory of we're reborn into a different, like a part of the cycle or a continuous cycle, but living different experiences so that our soul, like our mental capacity doesn't remember. We're like amnesic. We don't remember when we have a new life. We don't remember our past life, but our soul does. And I think that our soul comes in contact with other souls that it remembers. So we feel like we've known this person forever, but you've never met them before. You know, it's first time meeting them. I think that that's, you know, like you said, we'll probably never know. But I think that dreams, I think the out-of-body experiences, whether it's psychedelics or a natural vibration that you've done to make yourself leave, and death, I think that they're all connected because it's our consciousness leaving this vessel and experiencing another state of or a dimension or a realm that our soul has gone to many, 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 many times before. And a lot of times it remembers. And I think especially when you die, like you have your guardian angels, or you have what I've heard them called as greeters. They're the same ones. They always greet you. So your soul remembers them when you die, and your soul's comforted because it's a traumatic thing you just went through. So when you see these beings, they're like there to comfort you, and your soul remembers them from the last time you passed away, the time before that. So it's, it goes into all these different religions too, is what I love about it. So like a lot of religions have this same concept of these guardians that watch over you. I think that there's something there. I think that there's something there. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a ton of people talking about it or having the experience. I've watched a few of these little episodes of like where people have died and come back to life kind of thing. Near-death experiences, people on the surgery table, and they die, but their consciousness, like their soul's still there. Like one episode was this woman, she was having I don't know, heart transplant. I don't know what was going on, but she died on the table, and the doctors are all like, oh shit, like freaking out, trying to get her back. And then they resuscitate her. And then, she's still under whatever, the drug they put her under to make her go to sleep. And then when they wake up, she wakes up and she's conscious again. They're like, we lost you on the table. Like you literally, you flatlined on the table, you died. She's like, yeah, I know. Like I was still there in the room. I watched you. They're like, no, but you were unconscious. And then you were never awake. She's like, I know, but I was there. And like, I saw you use that knife and you did this. And the doctor's like, holy shit, you saw that? She's like, yeah. And they're like, you were dead. She's like, but I watched you from above. And I'm like, oh, like, that stuff's so interesting to me, because like there's a void. Your soul can hover in this, we can't see it. So is it a higher dimension? Is it another realm that our eyes don't see? Is it something our brain doesn't comprehend? Is it that purgatory state where your soul goes, but it's still here? Like, I think there's a lot of questions to that. And I think it's very fascinating because a lot of people have experienced it, near-death experiences. A lot of people have experienced on psychedelics. A lot of people have experienced it having dream states at night, even, what do you call it? Astral projection, and seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, all really fascinating. And hell, I'll even throw in alien abductions into that. Like most of them are asleep at night. They wake up, their bodies are still asleep, they're paralyzed, but they're conscious. They see entities around them, or they might see a light in the tunnel, and then they might astral project out of their body, even though they realized that they were in bed. So I mean, what does it all have in common is your consciousness is leaving your body. So I think, I don't know what's going on. It leads me to believe that, like you said, energy can't be created nor destroyed, it can only change forms. Maybe this energy goes and rests in a spot and then comes back. Maybe it has a forever source that it goes to, which is like a heaven, like, I don't know. All I know is that I'm experiencing this here now. I don't remember a past life if I had one. And I only know what I have experienced, and I don't even know how to explain those. It's just, I think for people to understand dreams or death or anything like that, I think that psychedelics are a tool for that. I'm not trying to promote it over here. I just think that they have a lot of common sources to help with our understanding of our psychology, our brains, our souls, our afterlife, our everything like that. So yeah, it's really cool to have that a part of your life, but it sucks that it's been so pushed under the table, like I always say. I mean, nobody wants to say psychedelics are a huge part of our evolution, but I really think that it was. And I'm not telling everybody to go out and do it either. Not everybody should. Or at least they should have one time to realize, hey, I probably don't need to be doing this anymore. But I think that that's a way of realizing who's going to have mental health issues, who's going to have schizophrenia. If they're on the verge of having schizophrenia and they take a mushroom for the first time and it pushes them over the edge, I mean, maybe that mushroom's there to maybe help if we could figure out how that would help instead of them losing it in the grocery store one day because somebody said the wrong thing and then they just snap. So, I think that they're there to help. I just think we need to get over that aspect of that they're bad for us. We just don't know how they really affect us, but they affect us. And that is a known thing that we should be asking questions about. Like, why do they affect us like this? And now we're able to do it, I guess. Maybe. We have the right people like researching it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good way to end it. We're almost 2.5 hours into this. So.
Hell yeah. Oh yeah. We do good talking there. I don't usually talk to anybody this long.
This is what I do. I try to get people just out of there. Out of what they do. I mean, I feel like you're a talkative person in general, but if I can get you to talk longer than you talk to anyone, that's good, bro.
Oh, yeah.
I know that people will be very, very interested in this conversation. It's always great talking to you too. So
yeah, same, man. I enjoy it.
You're a very fascinating person. You can talk for hours, and that's awesome because you have such these. You are a very intelligent person, but you have a different outlook of life than a lot of people. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate you having me, man. Let's do this again soon.
Definitely, man.
Oh yeah.
So you have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the rain, I guess. Enjoy your Memorial Day. And then I'll let you know. I'm gonna hold on to it until like Thursday, probably. And then I'll drop it.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, totally cool.
And then you have a great rest of your day. All right.
All right, man. We'll talk to you soon.
You too, man. See ya.
See ya.